All right, so I seen this graph yesterday and I just knew I had to talk about it, and it's basically going over the balance sheet of the Bank of Canada. And Maxime Bernier here says central banks around the world are printing money and debasing their currencies at a record pace to fund massive borrowing by their governments. Now guess which one is doing more than all the others to transfer wealth from its citizens to its politicians. Now again, as we go to the graph here, there we go. You look at Canada in red here, and this is going back to 2005. So this is going back a good 15 years, which is quite a ways. Um, of all the other areas, nobody is above about 100% of GDP. Canada is at 456%. Again, so they have Australia, the Fed obviously being the States, Bank of Japan, Swiss National Bank, and the Euro Central Bank. Again, and like I say, no one else is above about 100, but again, at Canada, we're at 456. Now, what is that saying? Well, what's that saying is that we're printing a lot more money than other places are, especially compared to GDP, which means our economy is a lot slower, most likely, than pretty much all of these other areas. I mean, the States for sure, um, Switzerland, I would assume as well. Australia, I don't know. Japan were probably a lot slower too as well. But nonetheless, this is a very scary thing. Now, again, the average person looks at this and they have no idea what to think, right? Because you're not taught anything about this kind of stuff. A lot of people probably would think this is a good thing, but it's not. It's not because we're not going to be able to afford it in the long run, right? Like what's going to happen in the long run if we keep doing this, which we almost have to. Um, Taxes are going to have to go up, and not just on the rich. That's a complete socialist fantasy, literally a fantasy that all we have to do is just tax the rich some more to pay for all this free stuff. No, it doesn't even come close. So taxes are going to have to go up, and spending is going to have to go down, which means um, entitlements and a lot of these social programs are going to have to be cut. And that's and what's the problem with that is that no politician's going to get elected on a platform that's calling for that, right? No politician's going to get elected calling for a platform of cutting entitlements. It's not going to happen. So what's going to have to happen is the entire system's going to have to collapse because, like I said, no politician on either side is going to run on a platform for doing that because if they did, they would be vilified as, oh, you hate the poor and you hate the people, you don't want to give them their free health care and all this garbage. Again, so like I say, that we're just going to keep doubling down and doubling down. Well, what happens when you're, a business that's already going out of business and your solution to it is to go take out a massive loan at a really high interest rate to try and pay it off? Well, it's not going to go well, right? Um, as a country right now, we are literally living off, maxed out credit cards, lines of credit, where you can barely even find, second, third mortgages. That's how we are living as a country right now. And you talk to a lot of people out there and they think that, oh, the economy's doing good and, oh, there's jobs out. No, there is some jobs out there. But you do not live in a good economy if things are like this. You do not live in a good economy. I mean, not to mention too, there is a lot of unemployment. A lot of businesses are not doing very well right now. A lot of them, I think it's kind of a fantasy that people think that things are good right now, especially in Alberta. But I mean, basically across Canada, but especially in Alberta, things are not good right now. And like I said, the problem is that there's no way that, I mean, number one, politicians aren't really going to go for it to begin with, but there's no way to convince the general public what needs to be done to actually fix the problem. Because to actually fix the problem, spending needs to go down and taxes probably have to go up. Like that's the only way to fix, or the entire system needs to go belly up. But that's gonna cause a whole world of hurt and pain as well. So there's no good news going forward. And this is the thing, we're probably too far down the rabbit hole to go back. So that's another big, massive problem. So anyway, the next thing I wanted to bring up is from Piers Morgan. He says, interesting to see those who've spent the last few years screaming that Trump's an uncaring, heartless, devoid bastard now spewing their gleeful joy that he and his wife have a deadly virus. They are no better than the man they loathe. And again, this is just leftists projecting. This is what leftists do. They project. Their way of doing things is always to project, right? Basically when it comes to pretty much everything they do, it's just projecting, right? They don't want to, tax the rich because they care so much about the poor. They want to tax the rich because they want more money for themselves, right? They don't want to give people free health care because they care about the poor. No, they want it because they want to be able to not have a guilty conscience and to not actually have to be somewhat intelligent when it comes to having insurance and actually keeping themselves healthy. They just want the government to bail them out, right? So again, those are just examples. Again, the environment is another big one, right? Like, ooh, we gotta go away from fossil fuels because it's not sustainable. But running massive deficits year after year after year, that's sustainable, right? Like again, it's just pure insanity. So anyway, it's a very sad thing in that we had Ginsburg die, what was it, almost a couple weeks ago now, I believe, maybe a couple weeks ago. And I didn't see much of, if any, celebration that she died of people on the right. And the reason I say that is because, number one, I didn't see it. And number two, if it existed on at least a somewhat sizable scale, the mainstream media would have been all over it, right? Like they would have been all over it. And the fact that I never seen them talk about it at all just goes to show that I think it's pretty much non-existent. But again, you have several prominent people. I mean, you literally have like major media outlets who were rejoicing pretty much or talking about how good of a thing it would be. And again, I'm not going to say anyone specifically. I've brought them up before. um, but again, like this is the double standard. Like the double standard's the big thing. So anyway, the next thing to talk about here is from the Rebel. And basically World Health Organization workers caught doing some very shady stuff. Again, you can go look it up for yourself if you want. And this kind of stuff's happened a lot before. People say that, oh, this is a one time. No, it's not a one time thing. This has been going on for a long time. And the reason why it's going on is the WHO and the UN are massively corrupt organizations. They are massively corrupt organizations. So, of course, they're going to defend people like this. They don't exist to help the poor and the downtrodden and to bring peace to the world and whatever garbage they like to claim they're for. They exist to push globalism. That's why they exist. Let's just be honest. I mean, I'm probably preaching to the choir here with most people, but let's just be honest about it. Like they exist to push a big mass. I mean, they're run, but the head of the WHO is a former communist. He probably still is a communist, right? So again, it's just absolute insanity that this is still even a question. And the last thing to bring up, again, speaking of the double standard, from Mike Kudry here, he says Tom Arnold violated Twitter's terms of service by sharing private information, also known as doxing, of a high-profile White House official. Many who have done the same have been permanently suspended from the platform. Will Twitter take action? Again, um, of course, I don't think they will. I mean, I heard they had reports that they were going to do it, but if they were actually serious about it, they would have did it right off the start, right? Like they're the ones that are, you know, censoring Trump's tweets and Trump's Facebook posts when he brings up his opinion on this kind of stuff. But when people do something that are clearly and obviously against their terms of service, when it benefits the left, then all of a sudden they don't really care, right? Again, so it's just the double standard knows no bounds. And the biggest problem is that you have a pretty good percent of the population, I mean, mainly people on the left and in the middle, that genuinely believe that there's no bias when it comes to social media. And here's the thing. They turn around and make the whole private company argument. And that's fair, but it's not fair on the other hand, in that number one, if you want to make the private company argument, fine, but then you need to repeal Section 230. They don't have editorial or sorry, they have editorial control, which means they are one and of the same as a newspaper, right? So in other words, if someone's posting death threats, that stuff needs to be censored and they need to be banned. Again, so either you have a sorry, you either have a free and open platform where people can post whatever they want, assuming that it is not illegal, or which is what would give them legal immunity, or you don't, right? Because this is the problem, is that on one hand they want to be able to censor people, but on the other hand they want to make the whole we're a private company argument, right? But you have to pick it one or the other. Either you're a private company and you can censor people, but on the other hand you're subject to be able to be sued, or you're not, right? And this is the thing, they want to play both sides. So yeah, anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you follow me on Twitter especially, but also BitChute and Parler. All those links are in the description, so you can find them all there.